Greetings from a noisy DIA, Denver International Airport. So I'm not sure how good the audio is going to be because this place is popular and busy. It's a Friday afternoon, President's Day weekend. I want to talk quickly about the release this week of the CPI report for the U.S. The number came in at 3% year-over-year change, 0.1% higher than expected, and a half a point higher than the previous month. A lot of people were surprised by this. I'm going to talk quickly about why we were not surprised by this and what it means for airports. So the reason we're not surprised is our take on inflation is different from most people's. We think that what's going on here is a once-in-a-century realignment of trade patterns, supply chains, relationships between countries, everything. And any time in economic history that's happened, inflation has accompanied it because you're putting so much pressure on both the existing supply chains and patterns while the new ones are emerging. And that tends to cause inflation for some period of time. So the ability of any federal government, Republican, Democrat, Biden, Trump, anything, to keep that tamp down and help the Fed hit a 2% target is very limited with fiscal and monetary policy. These things just have to work themselves out until the new patterns stabilize. So we think inflation is likely to persist for a while, which will do two things. One, the Fed will be constrained. Not only do we think that it's unlikely they will reduce the Fed funds rate this year, but we think in the second half of the year, if these trends continue, if there are future surprises on the bad side in the months ahead, that the Fed may have to actually increase interest rates by one or more quarter point hikes in the second half of the year. For aviation, what that means is it's likely to, if this continues, put a damper on demand. Already you're dealing with consumers are not feeling all that great about travel. The propensity to travel in the latest Conference Board surveys is about 15 points below where it was pre-COVID and trending down. And this week's University of Michigan Consumer Sentiment Survey shows that people expect an inflation rate the rest of the year of 4.3%. And at the consumer level, those expectations tend in economic history to be self-fulfilling. So we think that inflation is likely to be high and sustained. That will put a crimp on consumer demand for air travel. What that means for airlines is probably lower yields than they want, and they're likely to respond to that by reducing capacity in order to get the yields they do want from the capacity that remains. So for airports, the question really is for you, do you have the actionable intelligence necessary to know how your portfolio is performing and monitor those changes in time to affect your outcomes? So what kind of load factors are you getting? What kind of yields are you getting in time to make changes to improve the performance of the airline's portfolio so that you can not only grow your service but maintain as much as possible? The airports that do that well the rest of the year will tend to do better than those that don't. And so the signal for us is the necessity of airports to understand how their portfolio is performing and be prepared for downward pressure on capacity for the remainder of the year. We'd love to know what you think in our comments, or reach out to us directly if you want to talk about any of this. Again, thanks for tuning in.